The town of Elmridge, nestled between low, rolling hills and thick pine forests in western Oregon, was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and most thought they knew everything about everyone too. So when Grace Halperin, the 34-year-old nurse at Ridgeview Community Clinic, failed to show up for her Tuesday morning shift, it didn't take long for alarm bells to ring. Grace wasn't just a nurse. She was the kind of person who remembered your dog's name, brought soup to the sick, and volunteered at every blood drive. When she didn't answer her phone or respond to texts, her coworker and best friend, Diane Clay, drove to Grace's modest bungalow on Elm Street. The porch light was still on. Her car sat in the driveway, but Grace was gone. The front door was locked, and nothing looked out of place, until Diane noticed a broken coffee mug in the kitchen and a single smear of blood on the counter. By nightfall, Elmridge was buzzing with panic. Sheriff Tom Darnell, a man known more for breaking up bar fights than leading criminal investigations, found himself at the center of a growing storm. At first, the theory was a random act of violence. Maybe a drifter off the highway, maybe someone who saw Grace alone. But Elmridge wasn't that kind of town. The crime scene showed no signs of forced entry or a struggle. Grace had vanished as if plucked from the earth. Grace had a second cell phone, one she kept hidden. On it were text messages to a man named E. The messages were cryptic, some romantic, some fearful. One from 2 nights before she vanished read, "I can't do this anymore. He's dangerous." Her bank records showed recent cash withdrawals, large amounts taken out over several weeks. She had also searched online for "How to Disappear Safely," "Restraining Orders Oregon," and "Narcissistic Abuse." Sheriff Darnell interviewed her ex-boyfriend, Mark Bell, the town's fire chief and a decorated veteran. Mark admitted they dated, but said they broke it off months ago, mutually. He seemed shocked and concerned, but something about his answers felt rehearsed. The deeper Darnell and Oregon State investigators looked, the more disturbing details emerged. Grace had treated a patient at the clinic 2 months prior, a 16-year-old girl named Tessa Rawlins, who had come in with bruises on her ribs and arms. Grace had filed a report with Child Services after suspecting domestic abuse, despite Tessa's pleas not to. Tessa's stepfather, Mark Bell. When confronted, Mark said Grace misunderstood the situation. Tessa was troubled, he said, prone to self-harm. But neighbors reported hearing screaming from the Rawlins home at night. Grace, it seemed, had been investigating on her own, gathering evidence, possibly preparing to go to the police. One neighbor even reported seeing Grace and Tessa together at a coffee shop 2 weeks before she vanished. Both whispering, both looking nervous. Days passed, then weeks. A hiker found Grace's nurse ID and torn scrubs near the edge of Hollow Creek, 10 miles from town. Forensics found blood on a rock nearby. Grace's blood. Mark was brought in again. This time, his story didn't hold. Tessa had run away 2 days after Grace disappeared. Her phone last pinged near Hollow Creek. Under pressure, Mark admitted he had argued with Grace, but still denied knowing anything about her vanishing. Then came the breakthrough. A burner phone retrieved from a shallow ditch behind the fire station. It held voicemails from Grace, threatening to go public with what she knew about Tessa's abuse, and suggesting she had recordings hidden somewhere safe. Sheriff Darnell and his team turned to Grace's sister, Rachel, who lived in Seattle. Rachel revealed that Grace had mailed her a small flash drive for safekeeping just days before she went missing. When they played it, the room went silent. The audio files contained a series of recorded conversations. In one, Mark Bell's voice was unmistakable. Angry, threatening, telling Grace to mind her own damn business. Another recorded a panicked Tessa describing years of abuse and nights locked in the basement. The evidence was overwhelming. Mark Bell was arrested for the suspected murder of Grace Halperin, obstruction of justice, and multiple counts of child abuse. But Tessa was still missing. 2 days after Mark's arrest, Tessa was found, alive, hiding in an abandoned trailer on the outskirts of Elmridge. She was malnourished, terrified, but safe. She cried when she learned Mark had been arrested. She cried harder when she learned what Grace had done for her. "She saved me," Tessa whispered to Diane, her voice breaking. "She died for me." Grace's body was found a week later, buried in a shallow grave in the forest. A small bracelet with the engraving "Be kind" always still clung to her wrist. The town of Elmridge mourned deeply, shaken not just by the violence, but by how easily truth had been hidden behind smiles and small-town normalcy. A year later, the Ridgeview Clinic opened a new outreach center for abuse survivors. A plaque at the front read, "In loving memory of Grace Halperin, nurse, friend, guardian. Her mercy was never silent." Tessa, now living with a foster family in Portland, began speaking publicly about domestic abuse, always beginning her story the same way. "There was a nurse in a small town who believed me when no one else did. Thanks for watching. Follow for more."